Hello and welcome to Horseplayer Happy Hour, not just Horseplayer Happy Hour, but the Horseplayer Happy Hour playoffs. I'm your host, Peter Thomas Fornatal, back with you in the Brooklyn bunker once again, and very happy to be joined by a man who's not in an undisclosed location in New England. He's in a random hotel room somewhere in the US of A. He'll tell us where in a moment. You know him from the work he does on NBC Sports from his own eponymous podcast. He's TV's Matt Bernier. Matt, what's the latest?
Well, it's still New England. It's in lovely Stamford, Connecticut. I got in probably 45 minutes ago, downtown Stamford, no better place in the world. Dunder Mifflin, one of their affiliates was based here, I believe, if I remember correctly. But
that sounds right.
We're looking forward to the big weekend. Keeneland's opening up. It's Fall Stars weekend. Big racing starting on Friday with opening day, and then Saturday and Sunday as well. I'll be on Saturday and Sunday, 5 o'clock Eastern on CNBC, going over a couple of winning your in races in a few different divisions each day. So, man, this is the time of year that I like the most. No disrespect to the Triple Crown and the lead into it. This is really, I think, when the rubber meets the road and you find out who belongs where in what divisions for the Breeders' Cup.
It's an embarrassment of riches. I mean, there are more win in your in races than we can name. I think we've basically previewed every win in your in race on these shows. We won't be able to this weekend because there are simply too many. We'll get to what we can, at least in terms, if we don't have time to give picks, at least maybe we can give some quick looks. And it all kicks off, and it's fun watching our open for this show. That footage of me and Jonathan was filmed at a Keeneland Fall Meet. Love the Keeneland Fall Meet. I wish I were there this weekend. It's the old wish I could be in two places at once. I'm going to be in. I'm starting the weekend in New York, actually, Citi Field tomorrow night. Perrin and I are going to go cheer on the Mets in these playoff games that never should have happened. But that's a rant for another time. I'm taking advantage because I probably wasn't going to be able to get to a playoff game had they not, run out of gas a little bit here in September. But now Perrin and I will get to go. So hopefully
have they named a starter?
How can it not be DeGrom? Is that was just my assumption, but I haven't seen officially.
I had seen chatter that maybe it would be Scherzer.
Interesting.
When did he go?
He pitched when did that series start? It was Friday, Saturday, Sunday. He pitched Saturday. So he could. Yeah. He could. I mean, I figured they'd keep them in order, but I mean, I'm not going to complain if we get to see Scherzer, but Perrin has the DeGrom jersey. So she's ready to rock and roll with that. Saturday night, I fly over to England, but I'll be at the airport betting and watching Keeneland. What a great day's racing that is. Opening day at Keeneland's great too, with grade 1 action. Maybe we'll get to talk about a little bit of that too. But I'm very excited for this weekend. It's great to have Keeneland and the great stuff at Belmont at Aqueduct as well. But all this is, prelude to what we're really here to talk about, which is these Horseplayer Happy Hour playoffs. Now, we ran a qualifier today, and how many entries did we get, Matt? This might be the overlay of the year.
Well, so I was texting you. I landed at LaGuardia. I don't even know what time it was, but I said, hey, did I miss something? Like, it is an actual proper qualifier, correct? Because I was going to play one entry knowing that, the regular season's over and the postseason you and I couldn't indulge in, but these are just straight up qualifiers with the juice still going to charity. So I said, screw it, I'll take a shot. And then I saw at the time that there were only 19 entries. And I said, I'm going to play two, not just because I think it's a good idea that you can go, if you can afford to help out the charity, the good cause, you might as well. But also, to your point, purely from a numbers standpoint, I don't think there's anything wrong with, a 2 out of 49. To be fair, though, Michael Goodrich is already off to a hot start.
Yeah, we see that. Yeah, this is an incredible opportunity. We'll see. This may mean we do not have a qualifier again next week, but that was certainly the idea. I'd love to see that leaderboard and run it down a little bit there, Craig, producer Craig, who's joining us today. Michael Goodrich there with 57.20. Yeah, that's super strong. Braden Selvig, Mark Elliott, Peter Jan, Max Schnepf, Zach Agamenoni, whose name I've said many times and I always mess up. I think I got it. Tom Arndt, Joe Petrella, Damian Roncevich. Good to see that name on there. Haven't seen Damian's name on a leaderboard in a while. Dan Flanagan, Ed Peters. We'll run down those in the tie for 9th. But so that's just the one leaderboard. Now, Craig, we didn't go over this, but do you have access to this private? Yes, you do. And let's see here. Now, this game, very, very different. This one, we've got 84 players, and the top 40 are going to advance. Why 40, not 40? There were ties on the tour. So the rules allowed for extra entries to get in. The top 40 are going to get there. So there's no difference in this contest if you're first or if you're 40th. So we will not run down all the names. Maybe I'll do one name rundown at the end, but I do want to scroll down and see where the cut line is. The idea of these cut lines, I love it in these mythical contests because they really reward consistency. I mean, the player who wins this BCBC seat in the playoffs, and that's what's being offered here, a $10,000 prize. And all you got to do, it's hard, but you got to keep finishing in the top half till we get down to our final table of 10. And then you've got your 1 in 10 chance to win. So there's the cut line there. Obviously everybody still extremely alive, many races to go. And we've got we've got a very low total on that cut line right now. Obviously, it will rise as the games go on. Boy, we have a lot of racing coming up for you during this show. And I didn't prep Craig for this. It's just been a goofy day. But we've got all this racing going on. I don't know if, Craig, if you're across when these races are going to be, but I'm assuming there's going to be one every few minutes. Matt, do you have the monitors up? There we go. We actually have a 5-minute gap. I'm amazed till the next one at Horseshoe.
Yeah, we've got Indy coming up. Aqueduct's not far behind. Laurel's going to come into the fold shortly. I mean, it's kind of, I will say, you and I talked about it all throughout the year about what's the right format as far as, is it one track? Is it multiple tracks? There is something to the idea of, purely from an entertainment standpoint, the idea that you're going to be in and out to different events and different tracks with more frequency than just one track at a time kind of thing.
It's true. And I can argue it either way. I kind of loved the Saratoga shows when we did one race during the shows, because it gave us time to talk about all the great win and you're in action and do these deeper dives into Breeders' Cup stuff. However, from a pure entertainment point of view, not that those weren't entertaining, but there's something really cool about exactly what we're doing today, where we're going to have a bunch of races and we're going to have a winner at the end. There's something really cool about that. And one thing that we love and has worked great all season is people in the comments telling us what they like. Let us know. Do you prefer more races, less of an evergreen podcast, more of a you're watching a very unique version of a simulcast feed and a contest? Or do you prefer more of something that you would listen to after the event and hear our thoughts on all of the great Breeders' Cup prep action going on? We want to know what you like as far as that goes. So, Matt, you said you have 2 entries in this contest. Did you use the same horse on both for this Horseshoe Indianapolis Race 5? And who did you use?
I probably should have told you I was going to do that. I ended up cutting out.
You hopped over a Wi-Fi network. Did you hear my question? Are you back?
No, I didn't hear the question. I had to get off the hotel Wi-Fi. I ended up going over to the data just because it was breaking up just enough.
Gotcha. Dodgy hotel Wi-Fi. We're no stranger to dodgy hotel Wi-Fi. Hey, and we have a special guest. Come say hello. You excited about going?
Hello.
Yeah.
Excellent.
And I won every single hour so far.
Nice. You're having a huge day.
A squishy point if I win every hour.
We'll talk. We'll have to explain to the viewers what a squishy point is, but we'll talk about that later. But that's great. How many steps do you have overall?
6,200.
All right. With Taekwondo still to come, I think you can make 10. All right. Have fun at Taekwondo, Perrin. Great work on winning those hours. Excellent. We've got a little budding fitness nut on our hands, which I like. She's got way more steps than I have today. So I was asking you, Matt, before we had our little dodgy hotel Wi-Fi incident, who you used in this race in Horseshoe Indianapolis, and did you double up or did you use the same horse on both entries?
Yeah, unfortunately, I chalked out on both of them here in this spot. I will say I got very spready on both tickets for the most part. There were a couple of races where they're kind of simpatico, but the first race at Aqueduct was one of those, you and I have talked about it, that kind of psychological, body blow, where the one who Michael Goodrich had was passed for, I would say, the final 16th of a mile, and then somehow came back on the inside. Keep in mind, you're also dealing with, that was one of the 2 races that came off the grass. So you're dealing with some horses that may or may not actually want the main track. So the one coming back on the inside was a bit of a body blow to not just me, but everyone else in the contest. There are 49 entries. He's the only one that had the one who paid 49 and change or whatever it was. So, that's when the pick and pray becomes a little bit of a detriment, because I look at it now and say, I would certainly not take the 6-5 shot in both tickets. I would, if I like one, sure. I have $7.90 on one of them. I would probably keep that one just to see if I can collect a couple bucks here or there. And then that one that's running at 0 right now, I'd try to find a price that's a little bit more appealing. But, again, we've talked about it strategically. There's so much that goes into this kind of format versus a live format, because you don't know the odds before you put your picks in, and you don't know what everybody else is going to be able to do before the time comes that maybe you're right or wrong on a certain race.
There's some wild stuff with the morning lines in this race. Stop the Spread was 9-2 on the morning line. Might have been where I went, honestly, just on the speed angle. 23-1 on the board. Does that seem a little high?
Yeah, I mean, just kind of going through, and again, this was airplane handicapping, so formulator was just purely from a past performance standpoint. The big thing for me when I was going through this race, I don't know, I don't think there's one horse in this race that deserves to be such a short number. So like the 4 horse in here, Creative Miracle, assuming I'm in the right race, number 5,
yep,
right? Yeah,
you are.
I think the horse certainly has a chance. You've got a couple of 80 buyers in your back pocket, but truth be told, you take those couple 80s out of there, you've got a horse that, I don't know, is a borderline favorite at most, is probably vying for second or third choice. So if the horse doesn't run back to the 80s, it's wide open. And, assiduously, we know assiduously from many, many moons and all over the place. Do you really need to get stuck into this horse at 1 for 20? Oh, yeah, there's an equipment change, but I mean, I'd be stunned if that was the game changer at this point. Feels kind of like he is what he is, and he's 7-2 as your co-second choice. I mean, this is a race that I don't think anybody deserves to be super short, and I wouldn't talk anybody off of a price if you're gambling.
The angles for assiduously, I think, are sort of back out of the top circuit. Even though that Saratoga race was 35 and this is 30, I got to think that was a significantly better race. But to your point, the horse did bomb the last time at Indy. I guess there's also the workouts staring you in the face there, suggesting maybe he's doing a little better. But I'm with you. That's short enough at 3-1. I'd rather reach. I mean, there may be signals sometimes at the claiming level when you see a horse like Stop the Spread, who I think, maybe the morning line of 9-2 was a little aggressive, but he's certainly like supposed to be shorter than that. Maybe there's signal in the fact that this horse is 22-1, but I can't get off at that big of a price. I'm going to bet a few dollars here on that horse and mess around with just the other logicals, who I do think the market has identified pretty obviously as the 1, 4, and 6, and mess around with those numbers. Thread the 9 in with those 3 and see if we can get something to happen.
I wonder if part of it is for fear of a horse like Thought down on the inside, possibly the 2 of them getting hooked up early on. Thought's a horse that's paired up buyer tops of 67, figures to be forwardly placed, moving from the dirt over to the turf. That's effectively not the exact running style that Stop the Spread has, but Stop the Spread wants to be close. I wonder if there's a little bit of fear sort of in that scenario. But to your point, purely from a numbers perspective, this horse, there's no reason this one should be north of 10-1, never mind 20-1. So to your point, maybe all of a sudden people are looking at it saying, the horse can't run. For what it's worth, it's the same outfit as owner trainer as assiduously.
Right.
And look, it wouldn't be the first time, some funny stuff happened. And I don't mean that nefariously, but all right, well, guess what? Everybody and their brother's going to bet this one, when in reality, the other one is just as good, if not better. And by the way, is going to start 10 lengths in front. So
the narrative could be about a rabbit, maybe
possibly.
They think, yeah, I mean, that's another. And if that narrative is out there, that kind of thing can sometimes be reflected in the market. I'm sticking with Stop the Spread. I don't think Thought is out of it, by the way. This is a horse. We've talked about this angle many times, and these non-winners of 2 lifetime type events, the ability to have the horse that just won its maiden getting good. And that wasn't an overly impressive maiden win at Ellis, dancing on the lead through slow fractions, but I mean, the horse goes with some kind of a chance at 12 to 1. I'd be much more inclined to play one of those speed horses and hope something silly happens and just feather him in. I might do it. I might do the same bet I did with the 9 with the 2, just in case one or the other gets loose or gets a perfect trip, and then just see if we can't hit the try with the logicals and one of those long shots. I'm probably, and this is recipe for disaster. I think I'm not going to play it where I have the 2 and the 9 hitting the board. I'm going to figure one cracks and the other hangs around.
No, I mean, look, and if I'm viewing this from like a BC standpoint, let's just use your thought, because I frankly, I think you're onto it right here. Just because people look at one and think, oh, maybe rabbit. Well, at this level, sometimes rabbits don't come back. They end up staying and they get brave out there. Who's to say, even if you didn't want to go all the way out to a trifecta, that you don't use the 2 speeds over the 2 favorites, and tier them. So let's say you end up going with thought and stop the spread in one slot, and then you have assiduously, and you've got creative miracle in the second spot. And if you want, you can reverse them for half that, or basically just press up whichever one you like more. All in. What is that? It's a $4 play for $1. I mean, you could pound that thing. So all told,
how funny is this? Stop the spread actually drifts out late. I figured they had to correct a little. I'm not sure what's going on there. That's
also, by the way, the tactics are bizarre, because now creative miracle is up there pressing the pace assiduously. Who is
the stablemates are dueling?
Yeah, like, what are we doing? This is one where I wouldn't be, if I were there covering the race, and one of these horses ends up winning, I would go to the trainer and go, what was the game plan? What was the thought? To have both of your horses just cook each other? Was that the plan? Couldn't have been.
I mean, this is interesting tactics from assiduously. I mean, very enterprisingly ridden, but I mean, I think it's looking unbelievable for the 4. Now, you did get a little drift there out to 9 to 5. That's better for contest purposes, but this could also fall apart. There's these horses winding up on the outside. Looks at the 5 making a big move down the center that looks interesting to me from here. There's also a horse getting up the wood. That's my thought. Who looks okay. I'm not going to cash anything here, and it looks like the 3 actually got emboldened by that big run of the 5 and is going to go on with it. Now, we probably have another race coming right on the heels of this. Normally, I'd want to go back and take a look at the PPs, but we should probably just pivot to whatever we got going next. Do we think it's Aqueduct that's going to be next?
Aqueduct should be next. And the last piece I'll say about this race, I need to hear Eduardo Caramori talk to the riders, because there's no way that was the plan. There's no way. The owner, never mind the trainer. If we
had that what was the plan? I just wish that was in the conversation consistently. I mean, it would help.
What was the thought?
Maybe one of them just my thought is one of them just ran off.
Well, to be fair, assiduously, this was first time blinkers in 2 years. And we saw those hot workouts leading into it. Maybe he was just keyed up and he couldn't pull them back. Boy, if I'm the owner, I'm not thrilled.
No, you don't feel great about that result. They set it up for an off-the-pace runner and solid Country Gold off the claim for a very successful claiming trainer. Ends up getting the job done here. This horse made plenty of sense as well. Another one who I wasn't clever enough to come up with, and I wasn't sure, we didn't know how the race was going to be run, but this was a good ride too by Ramos, not being too caught up in things. So what happened I see we're at Laurel. What happened at Aqueduct?
They are ahead of the Big A.
Oh, Laurel are now ahead of the Big A. Okay. Yes. I forgot the fun.
Nothing's ever. Craig and I joked before. It's horse racing. Things. I mean, you can't expect things to go to plan, right? There's no way. It never happens like that. So here we are.
Have another minute to
audible on the fly.
Race. Rob chiming in, excited to be in the playoffs, unlike his Red Sox. Oh, and a wrestling reference, channeled their inner Iron Mike Sharp and jobbed out this season. Now, Iron Mike Sharp, not truly, now this is way before your time, Matt. I don't think you're that down the rabbit hole with wrestling anyway. He was that tier above a jobber where he'd win on the Superstar show against the proper jobbers, and then they'd feed him to the upper tier of stars in the first match at Madison Square Garden. So, I mean, I get the reference, and it's okay, but when I'm thinking jobber, I'm thinking Mulkey Brothers. And if you get that reference, pat yourself on the back, because you're a real wrestling fan.
So he wasn't and I guess maybe this is also unkind. Maybe I'm not rating it high enough. He wasn't like an intercontinental champion.
No, he would have lost to the magnificent Morocco at the first match. And I may have even seen that match in my first wrestling show when I was Perrin's age at the Garden. Bob Backlund headlining, probably getting the chicken wing on George the Animal Steel. And in the first match that day, Mike Sharp, who I'd seen do nothing but win. And to my 10-year-old brain, I was like, oh, what a great match. This is going to be Morocco against Iron Mike Sharp. And he beats him in 4 minutes with the headbutt or whatever. I can't remember what Morocco was using as a finisher at the time, but it was a long time ago.
Total tangent. I don't pay much attention to wrestling anymore these days, but I think Jim Cornette's podcast is hysterical.
He's crazy. He is crazy. That's another wrestling story of mine. Flash forward 4 years, 1986, when it wouldn't have been Turner yet. It would have been George, whatever. God, earliest days of WCW when they tried to make a run at coming to the Northeast, and we would go see them at the Coliseum, and at halftime at the intermission of the wrestling, they'd put the tickets on for the next event. So for a few shows in a row there, had front row seats. And of course, Cornette with his tennis racket, and we would be in our wrestling t-shirts, and I had a purple cowboy hat. I didn't wear a fedora back then, but I wore a purple cowboy hat, and of course was booing the heck out of Jim Cornette, as one did.
Sure.
And I remember him calling me a Yankee weirdo, and that was one of the great moments of my wrestling fandom. But no, Cornette, I mean, he's crazy. Great stories about him in the Jericho book that I worked on. But and he certainly don't agree. I certainly don't agree with all of his opinions about wrestling, especially not his incredibly terrible and incorrect opinion of my boy John Moxley. But he is very entertaining.
And again, this is coming from someone who doesn't know a horse's head from a horse's rear end in terms of wrestling. But I just listened to it, and I'm envisioning it all going back to me in my adolescent days, watching it. The heyday of The Rock and Stone Cold.
Oh.
And I mean, that I hear him, and some of the things that he comes out with are hysterical. And he's a Louisville guy. I didn't know that.
Oh my God, that's so funny. Yeah, he's very. I mean, he's nobody can begrudge him that he's entertaining. And the story, some of the stories in the Jericho book. If you haven't read that book, you don't even need the first Jericho book that I worked on. You don't even need to be a wrestling fan to be entertained. It's just a story of a guy learning his craft by traveling around the world, all this stranger in a strange land stuff. And it's funny because some of the places he goes, Japan, England, Germany, Tennessee. And Tennessee is where some of the funniest stories happen. And that's where Cornette comes in. All right, enough wrestling, even though I could talk about it. I could do a wrestling podcast, actually, but I'm not going to do that. We have too much horse racing content to worry about for that. It's 1 minute to this 8th race at Laurel. We've got a full field of 8. 3-1 the favorite, double favorites in here, and a pretty tight band. Who did you go with in the contest?
Yeah, so I mean, apparently this little string, and I'm going through looking at my 2 entries, the last race, and then this race here and the race at Aqueduct, I'm all the same, and I'm on the chalk. So I'm on the inside with the 1, who's now ticked up to the second choice on both tickets. I will say, purely from a strategic standpoint, if you are going to go with a shorter price in really any of these contests, but especially a pick and pray or a mythical $2 win place, just a live whatever, boy, you better be right. You really can't afford to just completely whiff on a race where, and granted, this is a wide open board, and I'm not even including the 10 and the 18-1 shots, but it's hard to make heads or tails of it. You get a bunch of horses that are between 2.5 and 9-1, but I feel a little, maybe I'm just prisoner of the moment looking at the board. I don't love where I'm at. I know I've got some prices down the road, but boy, when you're in chase mode and you're staring at a couple of chalks in 2 races and you've only got 6 races left, boy, you better not miss.
It's tough. You get to a point where it's just got to be runner, especially depending on what's in the format here too. We've got a leader who's really putting the pressure on. I mean, it's sort of the opposite. It's kind of fun illustration of, to me, it's just different horses you'd want to use if you were playing in the 49 runner, one, you have a 1 in 49 and you have a 1 in 2. And that's something, and that's a topic we'll take up after this race, is for you, how you would approach the those two differently. Is Tweet Away Robin here maybe a little bit overpriced for my man, Will Humphrey, in this spot as a horse who I think could contend to be the best speed. I mean, no sure thing or anything, but this just looks like a horse to me that I feel like based on her speed, I might be more inclined to think was a 6-1 shot, and I'm seeing 11-1 up there on the board. How do you think this race is going to unfold?
Well, so I will say Tweetaway Robin's a good call, just purely on the basis of, from a fig standpoint, I think fits pretty well in here. I will say there is something about horses that are kind of stuck at a level. And this mare, she's been at this N1X level for a long, long time. She's had multiple tries, and she runs competitively, but she can't quite get over the hump. That's probably part of the reason you're getting that 9-10-1 price. In hindsight, if I had known the 2 would be the price that he is right now, or she is, I should say, I was torn between the 1 and the 2, and I ended up going 1-2 on both tickets, with the 2 as the backup. But I think Glow City fits in here. Granted, I think the running style is a little bit hard to decipher. Are you looking at a horse that's going to rally from off of it, or can be closer in some of those longer races that we saw back over the summer in June and July? From a running style standpoint, though, you're going to be the one that's cutting out the fractions, I would think. I can't imagine just looking at what everybody else is capable of. I mean, she's got to be on the front, doesn't she? Sure. Of course, naturally, she breaks slow.
Yeah, the whole inside looked to break slow there in this spot. And it's still a little bit of a nobody wants the lead. And there's Will Humphrey going for the lead on Tweetaway Robin. He's also got the weight allowance. He reached out to me pre-pandemic. I think he knew me from Sky, and he's an Englishman, and was just coming to, it had some just general American racing questions. And he just seems like a really nice guy who has had some success down there. But yeah, it's a little... It's tough because he had to rush up to get that position. He's got horses on either side. I don't love it.
Well, I was just going to say, unfortunately, he's getting a firsthand lesson, firsthand knowledge of break slow rush. I mean, it just doesn't work. But again, he really had no choice. I mean, you're supposed to be on the lead. I can't imagine her passing horses. So
yes. How's Glow City going? Is Glow City going okay?
Yeah, I mean, I think so, all things considered. Of course, now the feed's going to start breaking up on us. The 8 seems to be moving very sweetly in behind horses.
Yes, the 8 just needs somewhere to run, I would think. Fine, looking for the split outside. 3's falling away tamely. 2's finding. 6 keeps plugging away. 6 might be the winner. Let's see.
Yeah. I mean, got every chance if you can't go by. 8 is still plugging along. 6 hasn't gone by yet. Now it's gone by.
Yeah, I think it's going to be 6-8 here. And so Sophia's Secret gets the job done for that team that always you should be looking at a little bit extra. Sheldon and Brittany Russell, they do such a good job. Lightly raced, perfect trip, good job. Russell Barnes been a little cold is one of the reasons why I didn't get as excited at her. What did she end up going off at, about 9-2?
5. Yeah. 5.
Let's take a look at this New York race as we are in, we're in race 8 already. I haven't looked back to see how my earlier Aqueduct stuff has done.
I will say it was there was a big carryover coming in today, right?
Yeah,
71?
I did a show on it. I didn't end up putting in a ticket. It was one work call after another. I had a doctor appointment. I'm super annoyed because, especially when I do a show, and Matt Volgi and I have a good record when we've done shows together of putting in tickets, and I didn't end up doing it.
You get one more result, you might be doing another show.
It's been that crazy?
Yeah, I mean, the first 3 races, the shortest price was $15.
Okay. Well,
$15, $17, $41, and then you just had chalk in the last race.
The problem is these late races have short fields that will probably allow we're going to need something chaotic probably. I bet the 7 in this spot, and it was a pace angle. I think was why I came up with the horse. What did you use?
I went chalk. I've got Mosienko in here.
Okay.
Again, I feel kind of dirty about it right now just because I'm swimming upstream. But the horse has had success. Granted, at the state N2X level, open N2X, maybe that's a different story. But has run well at Aqueduct in the past. Sias to Pratt doesn't bother me. I was torn between the 4 and the 5. The 4 and the 3. Bank on Anna. Even at the price difference, I still think I'd probably prefer Mosienko, although I think both of them are a little bit overbet. Because I don't know that there's anyone in this field that should be I feel like I said it a lot, but I don't think anyone should be way overbet or too short in here. But you ended up on Patty H.
Yeah, Patty H on the pace angle. The interesting one at the price might be Movie Moxie, who I thought was just an interesting potential runner. I thought this was an easier race than the last day. I had this horse as an A, and I wouldn't mind having Movie Moxie at the prices just based on how short everything else is. Not in the greatest spot there, dead last, and the 7 is out where we thought she would be on the lead. Mosienko not in a comfortable spot there, Matt. I think
No.
you need to. I think you either go forward or settle or something. But I don't like being stuck in between with a wall of horses in front of you. Just looks a bit in the phone booth. But
in a crazy price at even money. I mean, this
we'll
horse she can win, but evens is far too short.
And it's Pratt, so he might have a plan still at this point.
And she's running.
Yeah, this could be a long stretch for Patty H, but I'm gonna need a little bit of help in the form of Mosienko hanging, and I'm concerned it's not going to happen. But we're finding
you look like you're moving good.
Come on, go on with it. Nothing from the 6. There'll be no exact. It's just a question of if we can hang on. Mosienko trying hard,
but I don't know if she's going to get there.
I think it's going to be tight, and I think I'm just going to hang on. Let's see. No, Mosienko in the shadow of the wire.
You got snapped at the wire.
Yeah, I shouldn't have said it out loud. Yeah, I mean, a deserved win. Not the easiest early, but Pratt, patient, doesn't panic, lets the situation unfold, knows he's got the whole stretch to run by, and he needs every inch of it to get there.
Do we know who Dennis Lalman is?
Yeah, well, he's sneaky. He doesn't run a lot, but that's a name you'll see him come in and pop. I mean, this might be his big horse. And I don't know him personally, but
this is his only horse this year that's run.
Yeah, but I feel like if you look at his last 5, does he?
And I just meant this year. You look at he's 4 for 11, and she's run 11 times.
Right. I feel like he's come into Aqueduct. I feel like he's a guy that's just one of those names. It's on the radar.
Yeah.
I'll pop in Formulator and see if we don't have another race this second. We'll pop in Formulator and see. I think I'm pretty sure our carryover dream is going to die with that result, right?
I would agree with that.
Yeah, it was a tough sequence for me because I had my horses I liked in the first few races, and then God, no, I don't know. That's so interesting. This horse, he has so few horses in the last 5 years. It might be one of those things where I'm remembering things that are just from considerably further back.
But clearly he knows what he's doing. I mean, he's put her in the right spots, and this is the first time in, I don't even know how long that she's tried open N2X. She got through the allowance N1X rate last time out, and that was what day is today? The 6th. It was only a few weeks ago. She did that pretty comfortably. Steps right up. She's in great form right now.
Yeah, this is good. Good result for them, as expected. Mosienko gets the job done. All right, let's see if we can figure out if we have a minute. We need to do some weekend previewing.
We have 6 minutes.
Okay, let's do. What have you looked at the most?
Saturday the most.
Okay,
but I can talk a little Friday if you want.
Okay, of course I never got around to Saturday. So we're exactly diametrically opposed. But let's do a race for Saturday anyway, and I'll just host, and we'll get your thoughts. And let's do like one of these nice 2-minute things we can cut out for Breeders' Cup Social. Do you have a favorite bet or a favorite race to talk about?
The Futurity. Although both of them are chaos, the Futurity and the Coolmore Mile.
Well, let's do both. Let's do 2 minutes on each, and whichever one we like the way that it came out better, we'll make our spotlight race. And folks watching along, let us know who you like in these 2 races. I've heard a lot of people talking already about what a scramble the turf race is. Did you end up? We won't start the proper preview, but did you end up with a strong opinion in there?
No, I mean, I think it's hard to have a strong opinion in either race, just because It's the beauty of Keeneland. It's similar to Saratoga. These big Grade 1 races that not just Breeders' Cup preps, but just races on their own merit. They're so competitive. You can go so many different ways. I think both of them are scrambles.
Very interesting. We're getting tight on the leaderboard here with Michael Goodrich and Ed Peters and Mark Elliott and Zach and Dan. We're going to be fun to see who gets that $10,000 overlaid Breeders' Cup seat. And yeah, I mean, what an opportunity this was. $10,000 asset for just 49. I mean, pay attention. If we do run this next week, get involved and buy 2 entries. And obviously, if everyone does that, it won't be Overlay City again, but it could be something fun. Let's take a minute and look ahead to Saturday and the Breeders' Futurity at Keeneland. We've got this Grade 1 action. I'm going to start again because I realized for social media we shouldn't start with a leaderboard. Let's take a look at the Breeders' Futurity at Keeneland. Winning you're in action at the Grade 1 level, 1 mile and a 16th, giant full field signed on. Definitely one of the races of the weekend. Matt Bernier, I would love to hear your thoughts on this one. What is your general opinion of this field that we've put together?
Yeah, I was going to say general opinion. You'll get my final answer on CNBC at 5 o'clock on Saturday. I think there's a lot of speed. There's a lot of talent in this year's field. 1 mile and a 16th. How many of these 2-year-olds have proven that they can and can't pass other runners? Who is just sort of a little bit faster early on, who's got a little bit more precocity than others. I initially, my heart is telling me to look for a horse that has shown the ability to rally from off the pace. And despite the fact that he's a little bit light on speed figures, the pedigree is there. The connections are there. I do think Lost Ark is a little interesting. I've got a couple other things I want to look at before I really get stuck into him, but goes out for Pletcher. Pratt takes the mount. I thought he was really impressive in both of his first 2 starts. From a pedigree standpoint, he's a half to Nest. We know she wants to go as long as possible. He's also a half to Idol, who won the Big Cap a couple years ago. So this is a colt that I think longer is going to be better. He's still green. If he gets some pace, I think he'll come with a run.
A couple other interesting runners to talk about. Certainly on the closer front, Forte makes a lot of sense. I guess you have to make a decision about if you feel that it was the slop in some way that moved him up, but he leaps out to me. I'm also not giving up on Loggins, the 2-runner, as a horse who was up near the pace on debut, but it wasn't a fast pace, traveled well within himself. Maybe this one could get the job done from stalking and pouncing. When I had Brad Cox on the show a couple of weeks ago, spoke very well about how this one was doing and mentioned this race specifically. Would either of those be on your short list, Matt?
Yeah, absolutely. Purely on a number standpoint, you could make the case Loggins is actually the most likely winner. And on the heels of it being such a visually impressive performance, I think he's going to take some money. He's 4-1 on Nick Tamaro's morning line. I also think the other Cox horse isn't impossible in here. Instant Coffee was completely disregarded at the windows at Saratoga. Came with a long, sustained run. I have written in my notes, seems green, wants longer. You see Pettit, all the Bull Toros seem to be running on anyway. He's a freshman sire. Uncle Mo on the bottom. I could see a scenario in which Instant Coffee comes with a long run. I guess for me, a big separator in these races, and maybe to a fault, is who has shown that 2 turns won't be a problem. That's part of the reason I'm not going to lock in just yet, but I'm leaning toward Lost Ark.
I understand. I always end up beholden. When I have a note like you have on Instant Coffee, I put horses like that in the I can't let this horse beat me category. Are you similar? I mean, when you sort of predict, I mean, it doesn't hard to predict that this horse debuting at 7 would be better going longer. But when I write it in my notes and I have 2 reasons to think the horse is going to do better, when they're 14-1 and they're green, I like that because it's like little was expected. They're just supposed to get better as opposed to that hammered at the windows horse who's a little green, who I get a little nervous about. I actually like this pattern. And when I catch that in my notes, I want to go back there.
I think especially with a barn like Brad Cox's, or you think of Todd Pletcher or Chad Brown or any of these trainers, or Bob Baffert. Doesn't really happen with Baffert's horses at all. But when they get a little bit dismissed first out of the box for trainers that typically do well with first-time starters, I think that's when you look at it and say, okay, well, clearly they outperformed what even the internal sort of connections expected, whatever the thought was for them coming into it. I think of Looms Boldly the other day at Aqueduct. Maybe was just a little bit overlooked, and the horse ran a bang-up race. instant coffee was able to hang on at the very end or be able to come up the inside. I don't know. At 7/8, first time out, they didn't really, clearly they weren't betting the horse. I don't know. I think this is a fascinating entrant in here. And again, it'd be one thing if it was just this horse, but he's also got Logan. So he's kind of got the best of both worlds, arguably one of the best speeds and arguably one of the horses that, assuming 2 turns isn't a problem, will be at his best rallying from off the pace. So I think Cox has a strong hand in this race on Saturday.
Yeah, stop me if you've heard this one. Brad Cox has a strong hand. All right, we've got 0 minutes at Horseshoe. I don't think we're going to end up using that for social for a couple of different reasons, Craig. But I think it was good content for the folks watching and watching the replay over on the YouTube channel. You know, we broadcast these shows every week through Breeders' Cup social media and YouTube, and also the In the Money Media. Well, we're not on the In the Money Media YouTube feed, I guess, but we do broadcast from In the Money social. Let's talk about what you decided to do in this race. I realize I haven't had a drink yet, and we're almost halfway through HorsePlayer Happy Hour. So I'm going to, during this race, I'm going to leave this one with you to talk through while I run up and get a drink. But who did you pick?
I have the I have the 2 on my ticket with $0, so that does nothing for me. But I have the 8 on the one that's in a decent position. And I believe if I'm looking at it correctly, there would only be 3 people ahead of me that also have the 8. And I'm in good company. Michael Baychok, Basil DeVito, and Charles Browning. So we're in good shape there. I have $15 basically to have any real chance. I need this 8 horse to kick on here. Let me pull PPs on the fly again when you got 15 different things going on. Where are we?
It's fun though. I enjoy the fire drill. I enjoy the fire drill nature, especially like as we start to think of this as less of an on-demand show and more of just something we do live. And then, hey, if you want to check out if you're sick enough to check out the replay on YouTube, God bless you. And we'll give you some good stuff if you do that. But this isn't the Matt Bernier show. This isn't the Players Podcast. This is its own thing and its own vibe. So don't worry about it one bit. I mean, this horse makes sense. I mean, 15-1 is too big based on the figures and form that we've seen from DD730.
Well, so that's the thing. You're going to be going back over to the main track coming from the turf. This trainer has done very well with that move in the past. You take a look at some of the figs that this one earned in Cipriano Contreras' barn early on. Not only do the figs fit, but also from a running style standpoint, this horse has been capable of being closer than rallying from 100 out of it. And part of me hopes that was the first start coming off of a 5-month layoff, somewhere thereabouts, 4 months layoff. Maybe you got some fitness going long. Now you turn back to the dirt where this one I think is better suited. I don't know. I don't think it's a completely impossible scenario at 15 or 16-1. And for the longest time, keeping in mind, knowing that some of these tracks, smaller tracks, they may not have the kind of money early on in the pools that others do. This 8 horse was in that sort of 6-7-1 range for a while. So whether there's signal to that or that's purely noise, I'm okay. I feel confident enough going to bat with a 15-1 shot here in a race that, I mean, look, if he doesn't win, I don't have much of a chance.
Right. The favorite is dangerous for sure, looking at what she's done and the kind of form that she's in. But again, I don't mind getting stuck into a short price favorite, and I'm just not sure that this is one that quite warrants doing so. I might take a chance with a horse like number 1, Love Drunk, in this spot, who's got the tactical speed, I think, to get a bit of a good trip. Definitely tougher races than what she's been running in, but I don't know. She's not, I mean, again, just figures and form wise, looks like one of the ones, looks like a horse that should be around. It's not a huge overlay. I was actually going to say 5 or 6-1. When I looked earlier, she was longer. She was 7, but I mean, maybe a hint of value there. I've been paying enough attention to know what the rail's been doing at Horseshoe Indy. Any others you'd want in the mix, or would you, if betting this race as an individual affair, still be all about 2-8?
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of where I was going, and I think it would be an interesting, if you are really sold on the deuce being strictly the horse to beat, there's nothing wrong with playing a 2-8. You can bet the 8 to win and then play a saver 2-8 exacta. I don't know what the will pay is, or the probable anyway right now for the exacta is, but I don't think that's a crazy path to go about, as I'm over here looking and trying to look at the prices that I have in the upcoming races at Aqueduct and Laurel and trying to do, fast math and looking to see who else has horses. It's the blessing and the curse of the pick and pray, where you're trying to quickly do your math, but then also see, oh shoot, I'm blocked out by 4 other people.
Yeah, it gets tricky. Richard, nominates number 6, Timeless Glory, as a possibility in this race. I'm trying to take a look if there's any hope that I could offer him at 8-1 with this runner. Been running it at similar level, and looks a bit behind the best of these numerically, but I wouldn't talk him out of this runner. She's not exactly a winning kind at 2 for 17, but one that has a possibility. And then we've got Jose, who agrees about Love Drunk and is going to play Love Drunk with Talk to Me Justice. Boy, I mean, there's a lot of contenders in this race. I don't think, even though the two should clearly be the favorite, I don't think the two should be even money. I'm with our listeners in trying to find an alternative. And if you can lock in on one, Matt's idea about using the exacta as place, that for me is one of the most underrated strategies. And, maybe these days in Kentucky with penny breakage, I'm going to get more into looking at place betting and bring that a bit more back into the arsenal. But in most places, especially where you get crushed on the breakage in the place market, use the exacta as place. You take the logical contenders, the horses you fear, put them over your key. That's hopefully a decent price in the exacta, and you just put the risk reward in your favor. I'm going to leave you with this race. I'll be back before it's over, though.
Yeah, so they are away, and keep in mind this is a dash. They're only going 5.5 here. Flirty Dancer is out there cutting out the fractions. Image Run, who got bet down to 2-1 late. That's got to be vying for favoritism, I would think. The 2 is at 3-2. I don't know. I mean, it's hard to tell. At least seems like they're going a pretty honest clip out here. The 7 seems to be moving pretty well on the far outside, trying to rally and get involved in things. 22-3 again for this level. Oh, Craig, there you go. Block those bots. We don't need them. It'd be interesting to see how this whole thing shakes down. You've got 3 of them across the track right now. Anybody from the back of the pack doing anything? Doesn't really seem like it. 7 is poked ahead in front at 31-1. You going to get anybody else doing anything? The Deuce is trying to tip out, change leads. The 9 is hanging in very bravely. Anybody that had the 7, this is going to be a bit of a disappointing result for you, but I think there's a case to be made, or not even a case. Horse won by 4 lengths. She was the best in here. Image Run, who took quite a bit of late money down to 92, holds off a big run from Dash of Simplicity. Pete, to your point, I don't think it does any good to sit here and knock morning lines, but this horse, the 7, was 5-1 on the morning line and went off at 31-1.
Wow.
That seems like a bit of an error. Although, to be fair, you look at that paper and tell me that horse isn't, well, maybe it's an error. I'll leave it at that.
I'm looking at it's tough. Like it's a thankless
job. Which and again, so, and congrats to Nick Tamaro on the
the Keeneland game. How fun is that? Nick's everywhere these days, and that's a tough one. I think the more you have horses coming in from other places and other circuits, the harder it is to make a morning line in a lot of instances, because you got to figure out how to measure up form from different jurisdictions. And, he's certainly got his work cut out for him with Keeneland. We'll have him on soon. He was, I think he was on a cruise this week, still working amazingly, but I didn't bother him for any shows. So this news broke while he was away. We'll be chatting with him. We'll probably have him on early week to do a little bit of commenting on this last round of winning you're in races, etc. All right, we have time. We have a good amount of time till this next race at Maryland. Let's do a little bit of a reset. How many races do we have left in this contest? And maybe when this one goes official, Craig, I don't know if you have multiple monitors or what, but when that race from Indy goes official, I wouldn't mind doing a quick leaderboard check either because we have the time.
We have 3 races left in all. And when we do the reset with the leaderboard, I have a question for you when I take a look at these 2.
All right. What is the last race going to be? So we've got Maryland. I assume it's Aqueduct. And then do we end
Indy.
And we ended Indy. Okay. We ended next at Indy. That's great. We're going to be in very good shape here. All right. So we're waiting for that leaderboard to come up. Why don't we take this opportunity to do a couple of minutes? Let's make this picture, Craig, just me and Matt, so we get something we can maybe use for social. I think it's better for social to not have those track feeds on it, just for the aesthetics. But if we can just get that 2 shot of us, then we'll do that do that reset for the Keeneland race. There was something else I said we were going to talk about after that race, and it's gone out of my head. This is amazing. It is tricky with so much stuff going on. Oh, I remember the difference in approach to the 1 and 2 versus the 1 in 49 that you're playing in, Matt. How, or do you just pick who you like and you hope it works out? Like, how do you change your approach if you change your approach in the 2 different formats of contests we have today?
Well, now, and this is actually going to kind of roll into the question I was going to ask you. I'm taking a look at the difference in the leaderboard for the contest I'm in versus the playoffs for HorsePlayers Happy Hour. The scores in HorsePlayers Happy Hour are blowing this contest out of the water. I mean, the leader's almost doubled the price, and he's not alone. I would have been inclined to, if I'm just trying to make the cut, look at it and say, on a normal day to win a contest, I look at it and think you need at least 2x, closer to 2.5x. Maybe I would be looking at it saying I only need to get 1 to 1.25x times my money. So if you're playing a 10 race contest, you've got $2 win place. You know, maybe if I can get to $60, maybe that's all I need to do, as opposed to hit a home run and go for, you know, swing for the fences like Aaron Judge. But having said that, this data right here, granted it's a sample of 1 of 1, would suggest otherwise, because the scores in the other contests are through the roof. So
it's so funny.
Apparently my theory and my logic would have been incorrect. Although I can't say that. We're looking at the top 40, and 40th right now is 1840. So yeah, I'm going to stick with that. I probably would be looking at, if I needed to just make a cut, I'd be looking at 1 to 1.25x as opposed to 2 to 2.5x to try to win a smaller contest where it's only top 1 or top 2.
I'd guess 1x, and you might get away with less with the 1 and 2, and we'll see where that number goes. But, and you know, there's data out there on this. There's people who've been on our airwaves who'd be able to tell you what it typically takes in these spots.
Put it this way, I would be much less inclined to take a risk in the cut process as opposed to you're 1 of 1. You need to beat everybody else. That's when you swing for the fences and you say, look, if I'm right, I'm going to be in with a chance. And if I'm wrong, so are 48 other people.
I'd just use my public handicapper top pick in every race in the 1 and 2. And in the 1 in 49, you know, I'd have to absolutely love the top pick to use if I thought was going to be less than a certain amount. So you know, that comes down. That's the approach in the nutshell for me. You know, and
my question, part of my question for you was going to be: are you surprised that there aren't people, especially some of the names that we're familiar with that are bigger players that have had success in other contests as well, that didn't dip a toe into this individual contest today? Because, you know, the first one, and this isn't meant as sort of a, you know, X, Y, or Z about anybody, but I see Dylan Donnelly's name. And in my head, I'm thinking, I'm surprised he's not playing in this contest, because if he took that 88-20, he's, you know, $25 ahead of everybody else. I'm a little bit surprised about that.
It's
that there isn't more
surprising,
crossover,
and I mean, I emailed everybody in the playoffs and told them about the 179, but maybe I didn't hit them over the head enough. Okay, Matt, let's take a minute and talk about one of the most exciting races we have all weekend long. It is this Coolmore Turf Mile Grade 1 action at Keeneland, an international cast of characters. What's your general thought on the race?
A fantastic race. You can go so many different ways. You've got Breeders' Cup winners of old in here, and a horse in Order of Australia whose form seemingly tailed way off, and now he seems to be back on the rise. You've got the ultra consistent Smooth Like Straight in here, who, look, he just shows up and runs his race time and time again. And you've got a brilliant 3-year-old like Annapolis, who 10 to 1 on the morning line, purely from a gambling standpoint. If I could lock that in, I would say that's very appealing. I will say I'm taken by Santine. I just think the form that he brings into this race and the slight turn back, I think he's best at that 8.5, 9 furlong distance, draw a line through that Manhattan, too close to a hot pace, going 1.25 miles, and then he went away for a little while. His Arlington Million, and I know the 2 big races came at Churchill, but he's won at Keeneland in the past. I think Santine's very, very live in here, albeit at a shorter price, which in a race this contentious, I'm not thrilled about taking a short number, but 3.5 to 1, that sounds about right on Santine.
This is a race you could talk about for 45 minutes. We're doing it in 2 today. I've just got to put up my boy Ivar. I just think he's such a good horse. I think he comes out of an amazing effort in the race in Woodbine, given how good Modern Games was in there. 3rd race off the layoff, could be set for a peak effort. And I think the race is going to be run to suit. You mentioned about if you could lock in prices. If I could lock in 6 to 1 at Ivar, I think that might make him a clear top choice for me. I respect Santine. I'm a huge Santine fan. I yet have this notion in my head, with as strange as the Churchill turf has been, if he couldn't be one of the few horses who got over it. And maybe Ivar is the class of this race with some of the fastest numbers hiding there at 6 to 1.
Blinkers come off. I think that's an interesting move. Paulo Lobo's not been afraid to experiment with this horse in that regard. I will say, if Ivar runs, let's just say his race, never mind wins, he's very consistent. All it would do is continue to flatter Modern Games. And I think it would make Modern Games that much more difficult to get by if Ivar runs big or even wins this race on Saturday, in my eyes.
Check it out, folks. Winning your in action for the Breeders' Cup in the Grade 1 Coolmore Turf Mile. Join us next Thursday for HorsePlayer Happy Hour. All right, I think that was 2 minutes. I think that worked.
Nothing wrong with that.
Let's.
I'll tell you what, though. Cool. I agree with you about the price on Ivar. If you can get 6s, I think that's good. What do you make anything of the equipment change?
It is interesting, and I don't exactly know what he saw that made him do that. I mean, maybe was he a little. I mean, he got a little lit up. I just thought it was a bump at the start. But I mean, in Paulo Lobo, we trust as far as that goes. And it could be useful if it does make him settle more. It could be useful given this race shape. You don't need to be making a middle move here. Probably, unless it's a dominant front effort. I feel like it's a kind of race where the last move is going to be the best move. But like I said, my real answer is in Paulo Lobo, we trust.
And I guess the last question I'll ask you, I mean, what do you make of Order of Australia? I mean, I was stunned when I looked in the PPs and saw his name.
Yeah, I mean, he did seem to turn things back in a forward direction the last day. I'm very curious to get an opinion from the boys on what kind of number they're expecting him to run. Stephen Bonnick and Rob Dove, one of the top 10 pro punters in the UK today, been doing these figure conversions that have been like scarily accurate. They're about to pop at Maryland. Let's talk about this race really quickly, Matt. Who did you use on your tickets?
Pete, I got nothing good. I got chalk in here. I got
chalk
more and more chalk. I'll never forget. There was one day, one of the early days of me with NBC, and Nick Luck was the one who was interviewing me. I made a call on a horse. I don't remember who it was. And he goes, "You got a little chalk in your suit there." And I said, it's very cheeky, my friend.
Fantastic. I had a moment like that with Jason Weaver on one of my early appearances at Sky Studios in London. I wish I could remember what it was, but it was maybe the Pegasus one year. Anyway, I picked a short price horse, and he's like, "We brought him here all the way from America, folks, so we can bet the favorite." Nice stuff. It was great. It was the taking the Mickey, giving stick, whatever you want to call it. It's a wonderful cultural attribute they have over there that's very, very entertaining and I think a contrast to a lot of thin-skinned Americans. All right, we're turning in. Are we is our chalk gonna win anyway here, Matt?
And I say I have chalk. I had 4-5, so I had the 4 on one ticket. The 5 is the chalk that I had on the outside, who has since floated up. But no, the answer is no. I won't get either of them home. Hopefully we get all this bad stuff out of the system. And again, This is airplane handicapping. Not ideal. Not ideal.
Hey, a good carpenter never blames his tools, Matt. Come on.
No, look,
come on.
And it is what it is. And in my head, it was a matter of I'm helping charity.
That's right. Well, I think that's a good attitude. I often tell people.
I can end up picking up something, but at worst, I'm helping.
I wouldn't tell anybody at the $179 level that they should just play numbers, or But if I knew it was going to be 1 in 49 for 10,000, and and the VIG is going to charity, absolutely, I would have. I mean, I was walking home from the doctor with you. You told me where we were with 2 minutes to post. I was like, well, I've handicapped half the races. Should I just put in a ticket? I was like, I can't do it.
This is one where you just all twos.
Yeah. How would that strategy be doing? It would have worked pretty well there with Smart Yuli. That horse must have been a decent price, right? Is that going to shake things up?
I believe she was 3. I didn't think it was anything crazy, was it?
She came way in, huh?
Hang on.
When I had looked, she was. I'm seeing. Well, you know how they have those dated prices on Timeform. I'm seeing 14.
Yeah. Oh, really?
But, yeah, but that might have been a long time ago. Sweet Yuli, right? That was the horse that just won.
The deuce. Yeah. What price you got? 14.
I mean, Timeform saying 14, but we'll
okay.
see. It'll hop on the board.
Your guy, William Humphrey, 11.
I backed him in the wrong race. Let's talk Belmont at the Big A really quick. I had the 12 runner on top. My God, that's too short of a price, though. My second choice was the 8, 5-2. My third choice was the 5 at 9-1. I was trying to play a bit of a pedigree angle there on the dirt. I'm happy with that number. You know, that's a good example. You just sometimes you make your short list and you go down and you find a price you can live with. I'm gonna make a small token wager on the 5 in the spot. What did
I have? I had the 10. It was 5-1.
Who was my 4th on the short list? Also, I thought was an interesting pedigree angle potentially.
And the 8, I didn't see a price on the 8.
The 8's 2-1. The 8 and the 12 are logical, but they're just too bet in my opinion. Yeah. The 10 by Twirling Candy, I thought was an interesting candidate to adapt to dirt. And Kimbo Dancer, the 5, the one that I ended up going with, I just felt like the first race, that maiden claiming race, it just wasn't that bad. The horse was bet to 4-1, was in the slop, showed speed. You know, I mean, it was a weak maiden claimer, but I just thought 13-1 was too big, and we'll see how it plays out. It looks like a bit of a scrum on the front end here, and we're not in a particularly good position. The 10's running okay though.
Would you I mean, look, I stopped the race when you're a length to the good in the clear right now with a horse that who knows about what surface they actually want. Do you have any quick opinions, knowing that we've got 8 minutes until the finale for the day? Do you have any opinions on Friday at Keeneland?
Yes, we should definitely talk about that.
Alcibiades, I didn't have a great amount of time to look at it. There is a horse that I'm fascinated by in the Jessamine, though.
Yeah, let's talk about those 2 races after this. Let's just watch this. Let's see if he's pumping on Sense Giant. We're cruising on Ableton here, right? I should have made this horse an A. That was a mistake. I mean, win, lose, or draw. I should have made this horse an A. It ain't over, that's for sure. But
it ain't over. The rail's trying to run.
Yeah, and the outside's still plugging away. We're getting tired with this. I say where I didn't end up betting the horse, but I feel like I'd rather the 10 hang on, but I think it's too late. Feels like Sense Giant might be traveling all over us. Maybe we can dig. Come on, Ableton, fight back.
Oh, I was gonna say the 8 is hanging like a chandelier. The 12 is the danger.
Nice. The 10 hangs on.
The 8, that's a bad hang by the 8. I shouldn't say that. That's unkind.
It is unkind, but it's not inaccurate. Oh, I mean, went there to win the race.
Fair enough.
Went there to win the race. The leader looked like it was getting tired. And my favorite expression for that, I love using this one. He felt like he'd done enough. He'd done enough. We've all been there in a workout. You're doing it. So am I really going to run up this next? No, I'm going to walk. I've done enough. He did enough.
I also don't want to derail this, but I need to know what was you talk to me last time we talked here on this show. Your horse was getting ready to go and run. I asked you for the whole rundown. You go, they told me that, maybe needs one X, Y, and Z. I'm on the phone with my dad, and I can't tell you here what I was saying to him as I'm watching the race, but in sort of a condensed, PG version, I said, Fornatel's horse is going to win. And sure enough, and that's after the horse stumbled out of the gate and then showed speed and went up. And I'm watching on the far turn. I go, the horse is going to win by 5. And then I'm talking to my old man, and I go, except this horse looks like he's been shot out of a cannon at the 8th pole. I mean, give me the rundown. What did you?
Absolutely. So I was still planning on making a token wager because typically with horses I own, I only bet in an extreme circumstance, and you could argue this was an extreme circumstance just because he was such a good price. But I'd made the point about the whole family needing a run, and I went down there, and just as Brad Cox had told me on the podcast, and I of course made the joke, and I think I made this on air last week, but I'll do it again. He said the horse was, carrying a little extra weight. I said, well, he's, that's like the guy he's named after, but he really noticeably was big. I mean, he wasn't tight like a Brad Cox horse usually. He looked terrific. He really looked good in the paddock, but he looked big and he looked like he was going to need the race. Every indication was he was going to need the race. So I decided, and I ran into my 10 strike buddies and my 10 strike East buddies, I should say. And we ended up finding a nice spot and watching the race. And I was just like, I had that owner mentality of, and I'm not an owner of the horse, but I might as well be. I just had that mentality of, well, we've got enough on anyway. And I was, I stupidly didn't get a picture with him in the paddock, which I could have easily done. I just, you're chatting and you did, that'll come into the story later. So they break. I'm watching through binoculars. I missed the bad break. And he got to the front so quickly. I just assumed he broke fine. And, we noted on the show all day, it was an outside flow. In terms of, just speed it was not a good day for speed to that point. And I mean, yes, there was a point in that race where he was 1 to 100 to win. And I got a lot of texts after awful beat when he just gets, chinned on the line by that horse. But when you're in it for the long haul, you don't really care about that. I mean, this was a horse that it could have gone horribly or even decently, and he's running for maiden 40 next time. Instead, he looks like a potential future New York bred stakes horse, which would be unbelievable, the kind of fun you could have with a horse like that. So I was thrilled. And the data that I saw, both the Timeform algorithm and racingflow.com, both had it as heavily favors closers days. You won't see too many horses all meet come from as far back as that winner did. I think it was just a fluky result for a horse that's bound to get better and is a flow upgrade anyway. So, I mean, I'm over the moon. So
this is a homebred for those guys.
Yeah.
Obviously, the naming is a little bit different, but 57 buyer, which all things considered, first out of the box, factoring totally in fine. What you just said, kind of on a day where he ran against the grain. I think that's that's as good. I think my text to you was something along the lines of he did everything but win.
Exactly.
I mean, he overcame the bobble at the start, which to me is a combination of, inexperience and also sometimes horses just miss the break. But for him to then move up the way that he did, and he did it all within himself. It wasn't like Franco was asking him. He just kind of pulled him into the race, put everybody else away. And again, I think it was a Mott horse that ended up running him down. But on a day where that horse, in theory, had everything to his benefit compared to yours, and I will always call this horse yours, no offense to Marshall or anyone else. But this will be.
I think they'll accept that. I think they'll let me have that. They'll allow me that little illusion.
I thought this was a really interesting run. So I did a little bit more work after we got off looking at the family. And you're right. It seemed like they all excelled second, third time out.
Yeah, Whittington Park won second time out. That great filly who was the champion, New York bred filly, critical value was the filly. Critical eye is the dam. She got better with her racing. We're gonna have a fun. I think it's horse racing. Anything can happen, but you'd love to be it just in the scale of things of how it could have gone down. I mean, it's so far to the good side of the curve. All right, we've only got a minute here at Horseshoe. Let's spend a minute on these Keeneland Friday races each, and then. Actually, do you want to let's give a quick pick for Horseshoe in case people want to follow you in there, and then we'll do this.
It's a great question. That is a great question. Who do I even have? Let's see. Stand by, stalling. Why is Aqueduct not official yet? That's the first question. At Horseshoe, I have the 1, who is 10 to 1.
Okay.
And the 2, who was 9 to 1. Now,
I like that.
Selfishly, I had the 10 on the ticket with the 1. So I'm curious why this is not going to official yet, because the 10 was 6-1.
Yeah.
Yeah, probably get me close to like $22, somewhere thereabouts, 2022. That would put me to 37, and now I've got a 10-1 shot here. I mean,
30.
and I mean the leader's at 76, so I probably wouldn't have enough to get there. But
Give them something to think about.
Well, being you'd at least have a rooting interest, yeah.
Yeah, let's give them something to think about. And let's talk about the Jessamine for a minute. So this is tomorrow, 4:44 p.m. Very loaded and interesting looking field. I went with Delight. I just thought the horse looks very strong. To me, the Saratoga race, it was a very tricky trip. The form working out really well. 2 winners, 2 seconds, and a third from the 6 to run back. That was the race. That was the Saratoga race. Last time, much better trip, but I thought very visually impressive. Finished up well. Looks tractable. Probably better serve today, coming from a bit farther back. But honestly, I mentioned Delight first, but I think you can make a case for Sabalenka to be a top pick as well, especially if Delight ends up not settling and hooking up with speed, and this ends up being a closer's race. I thought, and I'd love to hear your opinion because you're good at this game of making the visual examination, but I just thought the last race, quickening up like that from a wide run, I think Sabalenka, you can make a case as the best closer in a race that might be suited by one. I really like the 1 and the 3 in the Jessamine. How did you see it?
So I love that you brought up Sabalenka, because the horse that I like is the one that defeated Sabalenka in the debut. And I can't imagine she's going to be 30-1. But she's got Pratt aboard for Chris Block. I think Knock Your Socks Off, the 11. If you can forgive the Kentucky Downs run over yielding ground, over a very odd configuration for many of these horses, and also when you look at the chart for that juvenile fillies, the first 3 were 1, 2, 3 in some iteration. She's the only one that did anything from the back. And in the debut, she humbled Sabalenka. And you go back and watch it. She had a little bit of a head start, but Sabalenka was never getting close to her. Now she's going to get firm turf. The weather down in Lexington has been gorgeous. We can only hope that it's this nice in 4 weeks. I don't know, man. Maybe she won't. She can't be 30-1 in here. If Sabalenka is going to be 7 or 8, how is Knock Your Socks Off going to be 4x that? I can't imagine it. But I think Knock Your Socks Off, even if you don't like her on top, I would certainly encourage you to consider using her in exotics, because I think she's got a big chance.
I'm huge proponent of throwing in on the form angle. And what I mean by that is if I like a horse, now granted, if it's a situation where I know exactly why my horse lost to another horse in the race, and I specifically want to bet against that horse getting loose again or something, that's different. But in a situation like this, I will almost always, on a backup line or in a deeper exotic spread, throw in the horse that beat my horse, and that's the case of this. And I think you can easily throw out the Kentucky Downs race. It's a very testing mile on yielding ground. I mean, now we're back on firm ground. Those horses both ran terrific. They were both against the flow. So yeah, I mean, I probably shouldn't be giving Sabalenka all that extra credit. I think a little bit of it for me was Sabalenka better drawn, but I think that's gonna more than be compensated for in terms of the price with Knock Your Socks Off. So
the other piece too, Pete, when we talk about sort of, I think one of the, it's not really a hidden handicapping angle, but you go back to that juvenile fillies race, a race where again the top 3 were effectively in some version 1, 2, 3. Look at that middle move from Knock Your Socks Off. She was 9 lengths off the pace, and then all of a sudden she's a length and a half off of it, and then all of a sudden she gives up ground at the end. To me, that's the sign of a filly that it's a bizarre configuration. And it's not Leperoux's fault who was riding her that day. It's just a matter of sometimes you move a little bit quick. You moved early into a race where the first 3 never stopped. I want to upgrade her way off that. And again, I go back to that Colonial Downs race at the debut. If you go back and watch the tape, I mean, I thought she was spectacular. The figs are light, so maybe that's why she's going to end up going off at a big price. I personally don't really care much this time of year about the figs. I say that you can't be 100 points off, but she's within 20 points of some of the fastest in here. I think there's every reason that she could jump up to a big race.
Yeah, I mean, 2-year-olds and speed figures, especially on turf, it's a whole other ball game, and it pays a lot of the time. It pays not to be too literal. I still use them as a guide. I still use them as my way in, but it's not. They don't have the primacy that they do with older horses that are more established. Speaking of Keeneland, we're gonna have special shows every day of the Keeneland meeting. I'm gonna have to bother you for one of those, Matt, at
Sure.
some point. We'll be looking at the late pick 5. Going to be having a ton of fun, really ramping up Keeneland all the way to the Breeders' Cup. We've also got a special Keeneland notebook coming out for our plus people that Eric DeCoster is going to be doing. We've got Justin Christine doing a Santa Anita notebook as well. And if you sign up today, you'll get all of that stuff for the next month, as well as all of our additional Breeders' Cup coverage for a very low extra fee in themoneypodcast.com/plus if you're interested in that. But keep in mind, all the stuff that's always been free is still free. And we're going to be covering the heck out of the Breeders' Cup as far as that goes in themoneypodcast.com. And then, of course, breederscup.com, you've got just a ton of interesting information. Also thrilled to be part of the content team again this year. I am confident you're going to just find great information from In the Money Media and, of course, Breeders' Cup themselves as we go forward. All right, remind me again, which number did you're on the 1 here?
Yeah, I've got the 1. Unfortunately, there are 3 or 4 people ahead of me with the 1, so it's kind of a moot point. But I mean, the position is pretty good. I can't complain about
the position.
Kind of trip.
Yeah, exactly. You need to get a trip, but you're moving nicely, and every opportunity that you're gonna have to make a decision here at some point. But I guess
you hope that the 2 can tow you into the race. Let's say until the 3/8.
Yeah, a split should come. I wish it was a little quicker. That's the only thing. You do have 3 legit. It's harder with 3 legit contenders in front of you.
Don't panic. Follow the 2 right now.
Yeah.
Follow. No.
He's tipping out.
Yeah,
he's got
I guess it worked.
He's good enough. He's got to finish. Come on with it.
Yeah, I mean, this horse is running.
Finish up. 2's still running. Come on, finish your race.
Yeah, she's gonna win.
Nice.
Well, now it's even worse that there are 3 people ahead of me.
17-1. Holy Christmas. Is that what that said?
17s, yeah. So, I mean, look, again, right idea. And okay, this encapsulates, this crystallizes what these contests are. I was right really one time with any kind of meaningful price. And I'll probably end up running
2 times. You went runner in those last 2 races. You had the 6.
Well, yeah. Maybe I'm not giving the 6-1 enough credit. I'm meaning more like
big.
Yeah, you catch that kind of a price. I'll end up running top 5 probably. I don't know who ran second in here, but at worst top 10, but probably top 5. And I was really only right one time with something that was a little bit outside the box. I think it just goes to show. And by the way, there's also going to be a little bit of chaos here, because there are 2 people that were tied that both had the 1, and they're tied on tiebreakers as well. So I have no idea how they're hanging out who wins the thing. But
oh my god,
yeah, it's very. I don't know. Sometimes it pays. Say what you will. His opinion is very, very. To me, his knowledge is as good as anyone's.
He's the most successful live bankroll player of all time. Nobody can take that away from him.
In the fact that there are, let's use today as the example, there are 10 races. How likely is it that you're going to be right? I'm making it up 5 times with a bunch of 4 or 5 shots. Possible, of course, possible, but it's not likely at all. How likely is it that in the 10 race contest you could be right with 1 or 2 cap horses or something close to it? Not likely, but guess what? You're better off playing those odds than you are going and winning half the contest races or 40% of the 10 race sequence that you've got. And guess what? If you end up with that capper, you're right there. That wasn't even a capper, and I'm going to be top 5, and I really didn't do much for the rest of the day.
Right. Oh, we seem to have lost Matt, but I'm still here, and we're close enough to the end. I can probably just take it home if we have lost Matt. Oh, we have some comments here. We can play with those. Oh, that's interesting. That's why the Belmont at Aqueduct, the 12 was declared a non-starter. I did not see the incident. We've got Howard chiming in. Knock your socks off. Also interesting. He makes a joke about Nick. It is funny that it just goes to show. We talk about how excited we are about Nick doing the morning lines, and we are. But then we pick on him twice. We pick on him with the 30-1, and I picked on him with the Ivar line too. But I'm not really picking on him so much as saying, "Geez, I hope he's right." You appear to be back, Matt. Everything we got the gist of everything, and you look like you're doing all right now. Are you back? Did you go back to the dodgy hotel Wi-Fi? Or are you still rocking the data?
No. I ended up getting some error message that said it's on our end, not yours. The StreamYard. I don't know if I'll talk to Craig afterward, but yeah, it was basically like a broken link kind of thing. So we're back.
Oh, interesting. Yeah, we're back. We're back and better than ever. And did you see Michael's note? There was a non-starter.
Okay.
That's the reason that got all messed up.
So we have a final leaderboard. I finished 7th, but that's not the story. I don't know. I don't know how this works, if I'm being completely honest.
So we have 2 people who are, and you said you checked the tiebreakers and everything?
I mean, they would have split them up if they were separated on the tiebreak. They're both ranked first.
Wow.
So I'm assuming they both had the same amount of shows. 1 show.
Yeah.
2 show. Their high placings were 1360. Their high wins were 3760. I mean, this is as tie gets.
That's pretty funny. I don't know what happens. I mean, I'm sure there is a rules way of adjudicating it. So I won't even say what I think is fair because it might be different than what the rules would have. But I mean, I do think there's an obvious fair solution, but I'm not even going to say it out loud.
Coin flip, obviously.
You could see you could see them going that way. It might be that random number generator. They might have to thumb wrestle. We'll see what happens with Ed Peters and Jeff Sandler. But fascinating. They're not reinventing the wheel here. I'm sure it's happened many times. That's some result. All right, let's do the playoffs. Let's see who made it. Let's see who. We have plenty of in the money media family here. And we'll see. We'll try to get an answer about who wins, and we'll tweet about that later. Here are our 40 players going forward: Kevin Walsh, Scott McGovern, Ernest Hay Jr., loyal listener, Dylan Donnelly, a terrific contest player, been on the show many times, Scott McGovern, Mark Wilgard, Bob Montgomery, Anthony Schiavone. Any relation to well, it's actually the same name as Tony Schiavone.
It is.
I'm wondering if he could be kin. Jeff Van Dree could be him. He would have enjoyed the wrestling comments. He was there that night if Jim Cornette called me a Yankee weirdo. Matthew Abbott, Matt Miller makes it. The reigning BCBC champion, who's looking to see if he can do something special here. Nancy Spence, who we hear from all the time. Dave Nichols, who's very involved with TRF and a terrific contest player. Bruce D'Agostini, a veteran. We referred to Jake Jacobs and his Racing Flow figures before. He'll be going on to next week. David Browning, good to see him after a year that I think was a little bit frustrating on the tour compared to his runaway win last year. Good to see him continuing on. Leonard Donson, Michael Cavanna, Julie LeBoyko, Kevin Engelhard, Chris Couples, John Bull III, Jake Jacobs ×2, Keith Nodskov, Kevin Engelhart, Kevin Walsh, Dylan Donnelly again, Ed Sinowicki, Robert Henderson, James Lasowski, Michael Domable, Kirk Rockwell. We're getting down to the sharp end here. David Priz, Trish Smith. Good to see that name. Robert Capalbo, very busy in the comments. Togo Travaglia, Robert Henderson again, Stephen McNatton, Matthew Abbott again, Nathan Kaczynski, and then a very unlucky bubble man by a dime, Mark Henderson. But those top 40, they're going to come play next week, and 40 is going to go to 20. And the week after that, 20 is going to go to 10. And then right before the Breeders' Cup, we're going to have that final table of 10 with the $10,000 Breeders' Cup betting challenge seat online. Will there be another qualifier next week? Not if I can't figure out why we only got 49 people. But hopefully, I feel like we were getting 2 seats last year. I don't know what happened. Anyway.
It may have just been one of those weeks,
The Aqueduct weather surely didn't help, but I can't imagine that was the difference. I think Some email somewhere got stuck in an outbox is my prediction. But anyway,
I will also note I'm going through reading the rules on horseplayers.com. The win, the place, we know that. The showpiece, we know that. Note that a random draw may only come into play involving entries to on-track events or other prizes whose value cannot be divided. A playoff option between those players involved in the tie may be offered per management discretion. So I tell you what, if I want that to go on next week on this show, I want a heads-up contest.
I love that idea.
That's what I want. So that's what we need to put the emails out there. I want these two individuals in a playoff
right now. Oh, head-to-head.
Head-to-head on Thursday next week.
And we'll bring them both in.
Pump it up like it's the like some wrestling event or a heavyweight prize fight. You got a $10,000. Yes, that's it. Yes.
I'll manage one. You'll manage the other. I'll get out the tennis racket.
Yeah.
It's going to be fun. Oh my God. That is a hilarious idea. I'm absolutely going to send that along. We'll have 3 contests next week. Why not? Craig, we're not making it work hard enough. So
I know. I will say there's another little caveat in there before that piece. It says if a tie still remains after the show tie break, then the winning entry may be determined by a random draw. I would push that this is not a random draw. Have the two of them play it out.
Head-to-head. And even if they decide amongst themselves we're splitting, make them go through the motions and do the head-to-head and make it like it's winner take all. It'll be better TV.
That's all we care about, right?
That's too fun. That's our job. We're content creators. Matt, this was fun. Crazy. And I think, hopefully the way the racing calendar works now, we're going to be able to continue to dovetail with the regular horse players lineup, maybe for the rest of the way. And we'll do some more of these fire drills. Final table. I don't know. We do have the option of just going Belmont and Keeneland too next week. Ooh, that's tempting. We'll discuss it off air. If folks have strong
there is also something a little romantic about Keeneland knowing that the Breeders' Cup actually happens to be there. Mm-hmm. We can talk about that though.
Yeah, we'll figure it out and we'll see what they're doing. But yeah, I loved it was fun having Laurel and Indy in the mix, but like there's some part of me that thinks that just Belmont and that just the Belmont Keeneland plan might work out best. We'll figure it out. Let us know your opinions too. I mean, it's a team effort here. All right, we are going to wrap. So we'll thank producer Craig. We'll thank all of our friends at the Breeders' Cup. Haley, Justin, Dave Vader. I should give him more credit. He's been doing a great job all year long putting together the leaderboards and tracking the tour. They couldn't do it without him. Thank everybody for playing. Come back next week. Tell all your contest player friends there's a non-zero chance we'll be giving away a ridiculously overlaid Breeders' Cup Betting Challenge seat again, plus a steel cage match. That's going to be fun. For Matt Bernier, for In the Money Media, I'm Peter Thomas for Natal. May you win all your photos.